Ya, first of all, selamat sore Bapak dan Ibu. Good evening and warm welcome to all of you in this international e-learning session. I am Imade Suandi Putra. I am member of the Board of Governors of the IAA. Today's internal e-learning session is on success and failure from experimenting with technology in ADB internal audit. And the speaker is Dr. Hock-Chye, this guy here, Mr. Hock-Chye. The Auditor General of the ADB, accompanied by his internal audit team. Actually, there are 5 members of his teams will join us today. And Dr. Hock-Chye has over 30 years of experience in GRC, and he joined the ADB from April 2013. And then before we begin the presentation, allow me to lay a background on today's discussion. There is no time better than today to embrace the technology implementation in internal auditing. As we are suggested to avoid physical interaction, it will be a challenging journey to us internal auditors to not only protect, but also enhance the organizational value. Therefore, using technology to leverage the audit process is unavoidable. Not only to implement the technology, but also creating a technology and learning culture in the internal audit function. This kind of challenge situation is also faced by the ADB internal audit team. As we all know that ADB have, as I know, ADB have a wide range of project portfolio across Asia. Therefore, Dr. Ong and his team will share their experience on their technology implementation journey. Today's session will be divided into 2 sections. The first section, the ADB internal audit team will present on the audit technology they implement, such as using machine learning to do a country prioritization and continuous monitoring, robotic process automation when they try to see whether the contract is meet the purpose and the criteria of the ADB, and also using the natural language processing. It then followed by the success and failure they face will be presented by Dr. Ong itself. The second section will open the question and answer session. However, should you have any question along with the presentation, I suggest that every participant here to type in the chat box, and then we can go back to that after the Dr. Ong presentation is finished to answer your question. And then as we scheduled also, hopefully we will end the session with a closing remarks from the ADB internal audit at 5 p.m. maybe, so more or less. And okay, without further ado, I will go ahead and pass the session on to you, Dr. Ong. Oh, our president, Mr. Hari Setianto, is say hi to you. Yeah, he will join us maybe later, yeah, in this session. So you may greet him when he joins the session. Okay, go on.
Thank you, Made. You know, as we say in the Philippines, mabuhay from the Philippines. Mabuhay is a Tagalog language that says welcome. But my name is Hock-Chye. I'm the Auditor General for the Asian Development Bank. I joined the Asian Development Bank since April of 2013. So I've been here for about 7.5 years. But before I begin, allow me to share my screen and my audio so you can see a bit more about what we're trying to do here. Okay, this is technology. Let me see how it works, okay? Okay, I'm going to share my screen and let me know if you see my screen.
Yeah, we see it clear.
Okay, you see it. Okay, let me see how I'm going to play the thing. Okay. Okay, you see the screen that says technology, success and failure on technology internal audit?
Yeah,
okay. Okay, good. Thank you. A warm welcome, my fellow internal auditors from IAA Indonesia to this webinar, and I just learned from Harry that many of you are from his hometown. So Harry is a fellow internal auditor in our internal audit department, also from Indonesia, and so he just told me that many of you are actually from his hometown. So welcome. Before I started, I just wanted to thank you for allowing us to share with you our success and failure from experimenting with technology in audit. We have, I think, about 40, 50 or 60 participants in the webinar. The webinar will be a mixture of both live as well as video presentations that will be delivered by the ADB internal audit team from 5 separate locations. We will be unpacking the webinar in 5 parts. The first, here, my colleague will present on unsupervised machine learning with sentiment analysis. Second, we will show a 3-minute video on drones, where Harry will stand by for questions later. Third, Andrew, my other colleague, will present on rule-based and supervised machine learning. Maybe at this stage, I will explain what is unsupervised and supervised machine learning. In the case of unsupervised machine learning, we will teach the machine what to do, and the machine will go and do whatever it does. In the case of a supervised machine learning, we also teach the machine what to do, and the machine will also do what it does, but we validate the results. So the difference between supervised and unsupervised machine learning is the validation process. So maybe later on in the Q&A, you may want to ask us, how do we decide on whether it's supervised or unsupervised? That could be a question maybe you may want to ask us. Fourth, my other colleague, Marisol, will present on contract analysis software. That software is called Argus. It's an application. It's an experimental application that we partner with our external auditors, Deloitte, who actually shared the application with us so that we can actually work out something relating to our contracts that will be beneficial for them, external auditors, as for us, internal auditors. Marisol will discuss a bit more about what the application Argus is all about during the presentation. The fifth application, fifth and last one, will be delivered by Chris Ian. Chris Ian will present robotic process automation, or what we call bots. His presentation will be followed closely, or almost immediately, by a video presentation on the bot. Originally, we wanted to show how the bot actually works, but it got a bit complicated, so we decided to record it in the video. Because in order for us to show the application, we have the bots, we have to open at least 3 applications. We have to open Python, Power BI, Excel, and a number of other databases. And it gets a bit complicated when you try to present it in a remote setting. So we thought we'll record the whole how the bot actually works, and the person who is actually speaking is actually Chris Ian. we actually recorded it and we did a voice over it. When it comes to the part about the video, maybe you want to increase your volume a bit. Christ Ian is a very soft-spoken person, but when it comes to data analytics, he's a dynamo, okay? Each application has a success and failure when we're trying to implement it. Our approach is basically to go ahead, to learn from to go ahead and try the application and learn from its success and failure, and reflect on them, and then move forward to the next step. So basically, that's our approach, is just to dive in and to plunge ourselves in and test the application to see how it works on the bite size, which means that what we call a baby step approach. And we believe also, being in the internal audit profession, we believe that by sharing what we did, we could also learn from you your insights on applying technology in audit in the spirit of progress through sharing. What I mentioned to Made earlier is that please allow us to complete the entire presentation. It'll be about like 30 minutes before you proceed to the Q&A session. However, please feel free to write your questions in the chat box, and we will get to them during the Q&A session. The Q&A session will be moderated by IA Indonesia. And we also, as a special request to IA Indonesia to record the presentation, so we can actually use it for future sharing and future learning for, in case if you may need it, and also others who may wish to see how other internal audit shops are actually applying digital technology in audit. On that note, let me call on Pierre to dive into his presentation. Over to you, Pierre.
All right. Good afternoon from Manila, everyone. I hope you're hearing me clear. Yep. I assume that's a yes. I am Pierre Gadpai from the IT audit team of the Office of the Auditor General, and I'm here to share with you one of our first journeys in utilizing machine learning techniques in our work. But please allow me to turn off my camera for bandwidth reasons. Okay, so the traditional model. So every year, we perform a country priority assessment to allow us to prioritize and zero in on the country or country portfolio and supporting field office operations that we intend to review for the coming year. As you know, ADB is headquartered in Manila, but we have field offices all over Asia, and we actually have one in Jakarta. Traditionally, this prioritization process was supported by an Excel template. We wanted to keep things simple and explainable, so we utilized 9 indicators, which was a combination of internal and external indicators. So the approach was basically a weighted average approach, where for each indicator, the auditor gives a rating score, which allows us to come up with the weighted priorities. Now, being Excel-based, our data sources were primarily static, quote-unquote, or based on point-in-time downloads from systems and databases that we have access to. As such, we perform this once a year or revalidate the prioritization and revalidate the prioritization mid-year. As the approach was judgment-based, we also validated this for inputs by our stakeholders. And at times, the prioritization is recalibrated. For example, a key event or or news may have happened in a member country that would result in us bumping up or bumping down a rating for a country. So that is where the new model comes in, the green area in the chart. With the new validation model, we actually wanted to build a tool that would automate most, if not all, of the steps we were taking while leveraging on the benefits of machine learning, such as one, ability to process more data as inputs, two, considering more dynamic and real-time data, and finally, embedding updated information on the news climate or relevant events into our model. So we decided to take what our Auditor General, Hock-Chye, likes to call baby steps into the world of AI and conceptualize this model and initially built it together with an intern leveraging on our internship program in ADB. We wanted to be able to process more indicators, 12 in this case, build it such a way that it would eventually allow for more integration with databases, systems, and subscriptions we have at the ADB, utilize more outside data, and allow us to run the tool as frequently as reasonably needed. I will be sharing more on two applications of actually both supervised and unsupervised machine learning in the tool. Next slide, please. Okay, sentiment analysis using news titles. So the first application of supervised learning was embedding news article sentiments into the model via sentiment analysis. In the past, we relied on research and hopefully reading key news articles that would significantly change our judgment for a specific country. If we see, if that is, if we see the news article. So we thought, since we have subscription to news feeds, maybe we could somehow filter the relevant news articles for our member countries and put a score into it and embed it in the model. So this is where sentiment analysis comes in. We let the computer read thousands and thousands of headlines, and based on training data we have available from the internet, we trained it like a baby to put a score on how positive or negative the news article is. Thus, it was a supervised model as we had to train the tool to reasonably classify the headlines. So in this case, in the slide, Philippines hit by earthquake is judged as negative, while India announcing a strategic deal would be most likely a positive news. We had a subscription to S&P Standard and Poor's, and we used that as a proof of concept where using sentiment analysis using the LSTM or long short term memory, we rated the news headlines. We now have changed that actually to Google's BERT, BERT, which has more context to reading news headlines. At this stage, we still have some limitations to the model as we are using headlines only due to some technical limitations, and we are currently processing English news headlines only. Next slide, please. Now, the next slide is about the second application of machine learning, this time unsupervised learning, where we used clustering through k-means clustering. To briefly explain k-means clustering in layperson's term, imagine a plane of an axis of x, y, and z, or a plane of three indicators, let's say portfolio amount, size of office, and maybe the co-financing ratio, for example, for the country. In a person's mind, we could probably see the relationship between the 3 points because it's only 3 points. And if there are many data points, we could probably see the clear groupings or clusters. Like, for example, in this chart, one would see generally five clusters, right, based on the colors. Now, imagine if you have 10 indicators, or actually 12 in our case, or maybe 100 in the future. At that point, it becomes impossible for a person to clearly see the relationships among the 12 indicators and group or cluster them. Impossible by a human, but possible through a machine. That is where machine model k-means clustering comes in. It is an unsupervised model where it computes basically the distance between the indicators and assigns groupings or clusters. Now, it will not say if it is a high risk or low risk cluster. It will only say it is a cluster. It was OAG, our unit, internal audit unit, who assigned the meanings to the cluster. Next slide, please. So this is the summary of the output of the model versus the traditional model. One would say that in the blue circle, there's 13 high priority countries identified, while in the model, the green one, we assessed 11 high priority countries. The overlap between the model and the auditor judgment summary is 9 countries, which we felt was quite significant. So at this point, we felt that the model could be relied on as a validation tool to supplement the traditional model. At this stage, we have not gone into the point of replacing the traditional model, but rather supplementing it. Next slide, please. So this slide summarizes some of the key benefits we gained from this experience. From doing it once or twice a year, we now have the option and capability to run it as frequently as needed. The use of ML and automation, machine learning, has also allowed us to expand the dataset to more external data and dynamic or real-time data. And finally, this gives us a little more confidence that the auditor judgment approach is supported by machine learning algorithms that we have. The model is far from perfect, and we are continuously updating it to make it more end-to-end, to have more relevant data, and maybe to explore more other suitable models. But it has been a great learning experience for us in internal audit to understand machine learning better and how it can support auditors. So I would like to thank you all, and I now return you to Hock-Chye. Thank you.
Thank you, Pierre. For the next presentation, let me turn on my video. We're going to show you how we use drones. As you know, ADB, we finance projects both to governments as well as to the private sector. And as part of our audit, we, as Pierre mentioned earlier, we pick a few countries that are considered high priority. And then we will go down to the field and actually validate whether the projects were actually existed, or whether the progress of the project were actually as reported back by our project team to the managers in Manila. Manila being the headquarters of the Asian Development Bank. So as part of the audit, we wanted to try something different. And this is where Harry came in. Harry actually suggested maybe we can use drones to verify some of our projects, especially in areas that we cannot get into. And in fact, you'll see when I play the video that you'll recognize many of the places because it's actually in your country. On that note, let me run the video. It runs for about 3 minutes, and hopefully you can also hear the sound. That basically concludes how we use drones. I'm certain you would have a number of questions on how we use drones, and do we have to get a license to do it, or how do we actually go about doing it? Harry will stay behind to answer any questions they may have on drones. And for using this drone technology, we are quite hopeful that in future, when we're able to visit countries, we are going to use more drones to help us verify the implementation of many of our infrastructure projects in Asia Pacific. On that note, let me hand over the next presentation to oops, sorry. Okay, so that let me the next presentation to Andrew, who will talk about how we actually use technology to verify our treasury transactions. Over to you, Andrew.
Thanks, Hock-Chye. Good afternoon from Manila. I'm Andrew Wang, and I'm pleased to share our journey of continuous monitoring tool on treasury transactions in this session. Video during the presentation. Okay, first, we will look at the high-level process flow for the tool. It covers data, processing, and reporting. As we can see in this slide, ADB treasury transaction data is not hosted in one single system. Therefore, we need to coordinate with various data owners for the optimal approach agreeable to both parties. While some data can be directly accessed from the database, some data needs to be provided by the data owners. In the latter approach, we need to further determine the data specification, data format, the time when data needs to be available, and the location where the data will be accessible. And then we use ACL to read these different format data from different sources, process the data, apply our rule-based tests. We also leverage on the data and the test result we gathered and use Python to experiment on machine learning algorithm. Lastly, for the reporting, we use Outlook for email and Power BI for dashboard. The email is crafted so line users can easily see the test result and take necessary corrective actions. The dashboard, on the other hand, aims to provide information for the managers. The tool automates the whole process from data gathering to reporting and is scheduled to run daily at 10:30 p.m. as the agreed timeline for data is set at 10 p.m. Next slide, please. Okay, as presented in the previous slide, we have two types of tests, rule-based and machine learning-based. This monitoring tool contains mostly rule-based tests, as we originally designed the tool to automate the most frequent audit tests on the targeted risk area. The slide shows high-level data flow, which is identical to the previous slide, with the exception that in this slide, it highlights the major categories of a rule-based test in the tool, such as mismatch of trade detail, timeliness of the transaction processing, segregation of duty tests, and trade anomalies. Next slide, please. Okay, for machine learning, in 2019, we decided to test out machine learning algorithm in this tool. We consider this tool as a perfect candidate because we accumulated several years of source data and test results. This enables us to label the data, which is a requirement for supervised learning algorithm. One of the tests we perform is using the trade log to test if trades are verified. We feel this test is ideal for our experiment because trade verification process follows specific rules or pattern which long short-term memory algorithm or in short, LSTM, is ideal for. As shown in the slide, LSTM is mostly used to recognize and learn a pattern from the training data sets and apply that pattern in the analysis of testing data sets. We use audit trail of over 300,000 transactions to train. The test result was provided together with the rule-based tests for comparison purpose. So far, the result has been satisfactory. In the lower part of this slide, you can see the difference of the two approaches. For the rule-based approach on the left-hand side, which you can see we maintain a lot of if conditions in the ACL script. While with machine learning, the process is totally different. What we do is we encode the data into numerical sequence, and we feed those numerical sequence into LSTM model. The algorithm is going to detect the pattern itself, and we, based on the result, we take a look and see whether the competence, the correct ratio is satisfactory or not, and then we apply the model to testing data. Next slide, please. So now over to the reporting. We have two ways of reporting, email and dashboard. This slide shows the email report automatically generated by the tool. It contains detailed information for tests with exceptions so that users can investigate to see if corrective actions need to be taken. In this example, on the right-hand side, all tests other than the test encoded begin with M07 and I06 passed without exception. So you will see a lot of zeros with the two tests as 21 showing there. Therefore, only two Excel sheets are attached in this email report. And I like to highlight that M07 and I07, if you can see the description of the test, these two are identical tests, except M07 is based on rules, while I06 is a machine learning model. And the identical result provide us confidence in the machine learning model as there is no known change in business rules to date. In the following slide, I will start showing the dashboard reports. Next slide, please. So in OAG, we also try to promote data visualization to enhance the communication of data. And in this continuous monitoring, so the first data we shows here is the daily trade profile. Besides some static data profile, which we see typically in treasury setting, we also presented some dynamic information such as daily average verification time on the upper right-hand side versus historical average and the value trade to be settled in the next 7 days. So it includes some of the moving data. And the next slide, please. Here we shows the historical trade profile, which the users can adjust the historical period and then to see the trend of the process and the trade profile. For the components in the dashboard, we actually collaborate with clients. So users are the one who has a major opinion to see what is the dashboard components they want to see. And then we develop the tool, so hopefully we can provide relevant business intelligence to the users. Okay, next slide, please. So besides trade profile, we also include the exception history generated by this tool in the dashboard. In this slide, it illustrates the historical trend of the exception for investment transactions. So the tool actually, we run for 3 types of transaction: investment, borrowing, and payment. So for each one, we will show we actually have the transaction history in the dashboard. So next slide, please. So finally, I'd like to share some key benefits of continuous monitoring tool for us. It allows us to cover all transactions and provide more timely information to the client, which also enhance governance of the process by empowering first line of defense. Thank you. Now I will hand over to Marisol for the next topic.
Thank you, Andrew. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Marisol Del Rosario. I'm from the Operations Audit Team of OAG of ADB. We'll also be putting off my video for bandwidth consideration. For the next audit application, let me first give a background of the ADB lending operations. ADB basically lends to sovereign and non-sovereign entities. Sovereign lending would mean lending to governments or state-owned enterprises guaranteed by the government, while non-sovereign lending refers to lending to private entities without government guarantee. In other words, this is with credit risk. All ADB projects are approved by the ADB board. These loans are given to ADB member countries of different types of lending modality and to different sectors such as finance, energy, transportation, agribusiness, or health. After board approval, loan agreements containing the terms and conditions are signed by ADB and the counterparties. For our non-sovereign project audits, the loan agreement is a major basis of our audit tests. Next slide, please. The main challenges for internal audit on non-sovereign projects are the volume and complexity of agreements auditors have to review and analyze, combined with the lack of established system of monitoring covenants contained in the loan agreements. The current audit approach is for auditors to read and analyze agreements to identify and understand key clauses, which may take at least 3 hours per agreement, with agreement pages ranging from 50 to 100, with no assurance of completeness. After which, auditors may retype or copy and paste to an Excel database to organize and compile the clauses. This has become very challenging and time-consuming. Next slide, please. We thought of solving this challenge by partnering with Deloitte, our external auditor, to experiment on using a contract analysis software known as Argus. In Argus, the process is basically to import the agreements into the application, process the document into a machine-readable form. Argus then searches and reviews the agreements using machine learning tools. It then analyzes extracted data and export the report to Excel or other application for reporting or further analysis. Next slide, please. This is a sample input loan agreement in PDF form, which Argus automatically converts into a machine-readable form, and then uses machine learning to identify the concepts and clauses the auditor specifies. Next slide, please. This is a sample output where extracted clauses are exported in an Excel format file. It also has an analysis chart where a summary of the clauses is presented for comparison and analysis across multiple agreements. But we would like to stress that this undertaking with Deloitte is basically experimental. So far, we have processed 60 of around 140 agreements, and training of the machine and refining the results were temporarily suspended subject to further assessment. We are still open to exploring other similar applications given the limitations that we have seen so far in the application's current ability to extract accurately, rated at only around 30%. This would mean 70% of the extracted clauses have to be subjected again to manual review and retraining. Next slide, please. But in terms of uses, we see potential use of the application in reviewing compliance with relevant agreement requirements and in analyzing and comparing key clauses across countries, sectors, or project risk ratings. We also see value in the data warehousing of the loan agreements for further analysis. Next slide, please. Finally, on the benefits, by using the application, we see potential benefits in enabling us to do population testing of completeness of key clauses, while at the same time, if we still do sample testing, the application enhances sample effectiveness, meaning our sampling methodology would have clearer and more credible basis. Likewise, the application can increase our efficiency in reviewing multiple and complex agreements. Thank you, and I pass on to Christ Ian for the next presentation.
Thank you, Sol. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Christ Ian from the Data Analytics team of the Office of the Auditor General. I will discuss about how we make use of bots to automate some of our audit processes, such as validation of loan covenants. Please allow me to turn off my video in a while until the end of this presentation. So just a brief background about this tool. So auditors used to manually download sovereign loan agreements from the ADB website, read each agreement to find loan covenant clauses, and check if these clauses were recorded in our system. So this whole process could take hours to complete for every loan agreement. So now with the use of this covenants validation tool that we developed this year, so all those manual steps mentioned are already automated. So this covenants validation tool automatically downloads loan agreements in PDF from the ADB website, converts these PDF agreements to text, and extract the loan covenant clauses, and check if these clauses are recorded in our system. Next slide, please. So this is a sample output of the tool, which is in Excel file. So on the left side, you will see the summary sheet, which contains all events processed by the tool. And on the right side contains the covenant level results, showing which covenant clauses in an agreement were recorded or not in our system. Next slide, please. Right. So this is the overall flow of the tool, from downloading loan agreements, converting PDF agreements to text, and extracting covenant clauses, and also matching of extracted covenant clauses against what's recorded in our system. So the steps in orange were added to make the tool much faster and more efficient, which is making use of a covenants master file. So this file contains all the loans previously processed by the tool. So before the tool downloads the loan agreements, it will check first in the covenants master file if a loan number has been processed previously to avoid duplication, and thus saving more time. Next slide, please. All right. So this is the Power BI dashboard that we've also created to help us visualize and interpret the results of the tool better. This contains the covenants profile of all ADB developing member countries. So we will see more of this during the demo video of the tool at the end of this presentation. Next slide, please. So this is the summary of the key benefits in using the tool, which are first, it allows auditors to perform population testing instead of just sample. Second, instead of manually reading each agreement that could take hours to complete, we now have a bot that could do the manual task for us. And last but not least, with hours saved in doing manual work, auditors can already focus more on analytical tasks, such as reviewing exceptions. All right, so now we proceed with the demo video of the tool. And should you have any questions, clarifications, we're happy to answer them later during the Q&A. Thank you very much.
Before we can run the tool, we need to prepare the input template containing the loan details. So this is a sample input template with 6 required columns such as the loan numbers, project numbers, modality type, country, sector, and effectivity date. Once done, we can proceed to run the tool. Just double-click the orange icon and a black window will appear. Just let it run for a few minutes, depending on the number of loans to be processed. Average processing time ranges from 5 to 15 minutes. As you can see, the tool downloads the loan agreement in PDF format from ADB website and saves it to the folder where you ran the tool. After which, it will automatically open your Google Chrome web browser to download the project documents from ADB's internal system. The tool uses Selenium WebDriver, which simulates actions done by user when manually downloading project documents such as typing project numbers, clicking tabs, buttons, drop-down menus, etc. Once document is found, the tool saves it in Excel format. Now the download part is done. The tool will now convert the loan agreement in PDF to text file. Once converted, it will extract the covenant clauses and check each one against the Excel file which the tool has downloaded from the system for existence and completeness. The tool will then generate an Excel file which I have shown earlier in the previous slides. First sheet is the summary sheet containing the loan numbers processed by the tool, as well as how many covenant clauses out of the total were recorded in the system. Next sheet is a sample loan level results, which shows the breakdown of covenant clauses that were recorded or not in the system. Last sheet is the detailed information sheet, which contains other loan-specific details and is also the data source of our Power BI dashboard. So here is the Power BI dashboard that shows covenant clauses profile of ADB's developing member countries. You can filter a specific country of interest and be able to see the covenants profile. You can also drill down on each chart by clicking on a portion, then drill through. This drill through page shows the loan details such as the website link to the loan agreement, the existence ratio of covenant clauses, as well as the file link to the individual loan level results.
That concludes the presentation report. And Now we are proceeding to the Q&A session, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and so that way I'll pass the session over to IIA Indonesia, and it looks like we have maybe about 15 to 20 minutes to answer your questions, and please feel free if you wish to answer a question in person. Switch on your video and unmute yourself, ask your question, then switch off your video and go back to mute. Or if not, then IIA Indonesia will pick the questions from the chat box, and then we will address them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Ong and team. A nice presentation. There are some things that I can underline, like we can do more with less, like what you said before, by using machine learning and artificial intelligence, and then you can access the inaccessible by using drone, and then we can overlook the things that we are usually overlook in our manual audits by using continuous audits and so on and so forth, and also we can save time. And then what make me interested in your technology implementation in ADB is where is the idea come from? Is it from the Audit General Office or from the management? And if it's come from you, how do you get the buy-in from the management? Could you explain us some more about that?
So maybe let me take this question, and Andrew, Marisol, Harry, Pierre, and just please chip in if need to. You know, the way that we came up with what technology to use was more to look internally. There are many things that we do in audit that is manual. We do a lot of manual process, like for example, when Chris was talking about when we download a loan agreement, and then we go to the system to check to see whether the clause was included in the system. So that's a very manual process. And when we sat back, God, we spent about 3 hours or 4 hours just to look at one agreement and compare against the system. Then we ask ourselves, is there a simple way of doing this? Is there a technology out there that we can actually use? And we explore a few things, and then and we had a benefit of a strong and a very energetic team to maybe look into, maybe we can use robotic process automation. So a lot of things that we design is more for us, for internal audit. And because we felt that there are some things that we can do, that we do manually, that we can automate to make our process more efficient, more effective, so we can do more interesting things. And the thing that we, for example, on Andrew's treasury transactions, we did that as part of our audit. And because we wanted to find out whether certain key controls were implemented, so we designed something as part of our audit. Then we realized that the client actually was interested in that. And so we spent about 3 years developing that. It took us about 2 years just to fine tune using rule-based learning. And then the third year last year we applied what we call machine learning. And this year we handed the tool over to our treasury department. This is actually good for you, not for us, because we are more the third line of defense and you're the second line. So to answer your question, a lot of the suggestions actually came from internal. It's just that we're looking at ourselves in a mirror and says, okay, how can we do things better? And so by sitting down in a group and we're just discussing our coffee, our lunch, or on the way home at the elevator, we think maybe we can do this and that. And then somebody will come with an idea and then we explore it. And I don't know whether anyone else in the team, in the internal audit team, wish to add any other things.
Okay, thank the source of the idea from the internal to like you said to education because this kind of technology is so much beneficial for them, and let me put it on another another point of view, because like when we want to implement the continuous audits, management or people who run the daily basis business, they don't really want to bother with to being audit every time. And then how do you get their buy-in to let you implement, to inject your continuous audit or continuous monitoring module on their system?
You know, what I can say is that people don't buy in because they don't understand.
Yeah.
And second is, when there are new technology, there's a lot of money is involved. So in the case of the our treasury monitoring, we did it because we have to do it for our audit. So we did it to ourselves because our treasury transactions is like 100,000 transactions a year. In fact, over a period of, we cover a period of a few years, it's a few 100,000 transactions. So it's actually quite impossible for us to actually verify those. We can pick a few samples, but these samples tend not to be too representative. So we decided, why don't we just figure a way of how we can check the entire population for our audit. And so we do it ourselves. And then we show it to our client. He says, this is what we found. And they are surprised with the results because we could do it in 2 months. We're looking at transactions over 5 years, a few 100,000 transactions. So they asked whether they can actually, we can take it a bit further. So what we do is we do it ourselves, and then we showcase it, and then they buy into it, and we work together on that. If they don't buy into it, we stop there, we move up to something else, because our job is more for internal. And we are doing it because as an added value service to client, we also have 2 lines of business. One is audit and the other is advisory. So if they felt that this could add some value to them, so we can use that advisory time to help them design something that's actually good for the institution. For us, in ADB, we practice what we call 1 ADB. It doesn't matter who does it. As long as at the end of the day, it's good for the institution.
Okay, thank you. So you saw the evidence there. That's why they can accept what you suggest them to do. Okay, we have one question here in the chat box from Mr. Ahmed Gandhi. The question is, how much it costs to create this kind of machine learning and tools that you have been implementing in ADB? Is it cost a lot? You said it's cost a lot of money. And how much?
It's a good question. In fact, this question was asked by many people. If I were to tell you it costs us nothing, would you believe it? You will not believe it. But actually, yeah, because the thing that cost us was actually time. Time was a factor that we invest in, not money. Because Python, if you run the bot, Python is free download. It's free. Of course, you need to know someone to learn how to use it. Power BI for us is free because it's our institutional tool. Excel is free to us because it's owned by the institution. I mean, the institution has license to it. And then as far as the data sets concerned, they are already there. All we need to figure out is how to pull the data. So in our case, we decided, okay, now we have Python, we have Power BI, we have Excel, we have data. So we need to invest masa, our own time, to actually pull all these things together. So the investment for us is time, and that's so invaluable because, as you know, time, once you waste it, it's gone, whereas money could be earned. So in our case, we invest a lot of hours, and also because there's a lot of dedication to that. So to answer your question is, if you want to get the technology, you need to invest time.
Okay, thanks. We can move to the next question. what are the basic fundamentals that you have to change to transform into this kind of auditing? Maybe we have to change the culture before we can implement the technology or something like that. You can proceed.
It's another good question. Culture is always a big topic. Yeah? In our case, I guess we were lucky because our institution ADB, we have a 10-year strategy. We have a 2030 plan. And as part of the strategy is to go digital. So it meant that about 3 years ago, we started implementing digital technology, which meant that we're trying to move away from paper-based to digital-based. So we have done that. And because the institution is moving towards digital, as an internal audit function, invariably, we have to jump onto the digital train. Otherwise, we'll be left behind. So intuitively, the team in internal audit decided that we either get on the train, we're not sure where we are going, or we are left behind the station. So the choice is very obvious. So in a sense, we are in that position. In fact, because we are in this COVID-19 pandemic situation, the value of what ADB has done in the last 2-3 years is coming down to friction. For the last 6 months, 6 months, we have not gone to office, but we still do our audit because of technology. We're able to do our interviews like what we are doing now. We have direct access to our institutional data. We can run all our bots and all this anywhere, anytime. The only thing we can't do is drones because we actually have to think physically in that country. And that one, Harry has come up with some clever idea on how we can do that. If he has some suggestions, if you want to ask him on that. So of course, culture is important, but more important is your internal culture. You must want to do it. Because if you yourself do not want to do it, it doesn't matter.
So yeah, so it goes back to ourselves. If we want to do it, just do it. I mean, like we cannot rely on other people to ask us what to do. Yeah, we know that we need to do that, and then just do it. Okay, maybe following that question, how long is it for ADB to transform to that new fundamentals? I mean, to change the culture from the manual audits to the technological audits like you presented before?
This process is actually ongoing.
Okay.
Because it's not just a one-time thing. It's not like you want to change, tomorrow you change. In a case of internal audit department, we have actually gone digital many years already. I mean, like for example, we have all on electronic working papers for the last 10 years. And if you come to our office, there's no paper on the desk. It's all basically electronic. And so we have moved into the technology environment in the past. And now we are using Teammate. Now we're moving to Teammate Plus. So we ourselves actually been moving slowly. So what we do is we take baby steps. It doesn't happen tomorrow. We have a long-term vision. That our long-term vision is that we want to go digital because this is where the future is, and this is where the direction of the information is. And this is where if you don't embrace technology, you'll be left behind. So we decided that we chose not to be left behind. We chose to do something, and we do it slowly. We do what we call baby steps. Yeah? We test something, then we'll just see how it works. It doesn't work, then we'll do something else, and that's how we progress.
Can I add something?
Please, Harry.
Yeah, I understand the concern from Made because I think he came from. I'll just speak English and Indonesia, a mix of English and Indonesia to give some perspective. So yes, Made, we already started go to digital like 10 years ago, but the more formal way we have a so-called digital agenda starting last year. We have a budget, our IB has budget like 130 millions for the next 10 years, 5 to 10 years. And then we have something so-called sandbox. Sandbox bahasa Indonesianya itu kan kayak kotak pasir ya. Ya, anak-anak bermain di sandbox, bikin apa aja, bermain terserah. This is to incite innovation from DB. So instead of sandbox, so everybody can jump in. You just throw it, like in my case, in your case, for example, the simple one, like you saw the video of drone. Actually, it just came out from nowhere 2 weeks 2 weeks before going to Indonesia, and then Hock-Chye just let's go using drone to see the project. And then I have no idea. I never touched drone. I don't know how to operate. And then we have 2 drones in ADB, and then we cannot use it because we think about the risk, and all the incident that may come out during the physical project. So we decided to use our admin expense to rent drone in Kalimantan, and also to use the implementing agency drone in Java, in Banten. So yeah, that's it. I mean, were we prepared? No, we are not prepared. So we just jump in. And then after that, we show the video to ADB staff, project staff. Actually, the project staff should initiate the idea, not OAG, because they're the one who really need it. They're the one who really need drone to monitor the project. But after that, we see some initiative from the project staff, particularly last June. Now they're trying to hire the company, the consultant, so-called Skycatch. Okay, this is a pilot project with the Skycatch. Now they're using drone in Nauru, and ADB staff can see it from Manila. Okay, I mean, if you see the baby step, just using drone, now we're going to use drone with the relevant software to check the project in Nauru without going there. Okay. Now another thing that we just did is that I was supposedly go to Pakistan last July to see the project in Pakistan. Because of the COVID, I could not go. Right. So now it gives us a challenge. We usually go to visit project, see the observe the project progress, implementations. Now we cannot do it anymore. So what I did is we just asked, could you take the video of the project site? And then when I receive the video, I use satellite image, okay, a satellite image, and then compare it with the video. But by comparing that, I can see something. I can compare, and then I found something. So to answer your questions, who should initiate? Do we have to create culture? We create culture. We don't wait. Yeah, I hope it's explained. I'll stop.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Pak Hari.
Thank you, Harry.
Yeah, we have another participant who raised their hand here. It's Pak Yangki Islianto. Pak Yangki, you can unmute and ask your question yourself.
Hello.
Yes.
Yes. Sir, I am so interested in the first presentation, continuous monitoring tools, which using 2 methods of analysis, which are the rule-based using computer ID design or SEL, and machine learning using Python. My question is, which is more effective, the machine learning, the rule-based, or the machine learning or the rule-based analysis? And is the machine learning is meant to replace the rule-based analysis someday maybe, or it will always be parallel for comparison maybe? That's all, sir. Thank you.
Good question, Yangki. Let me answer the easy part, then I'll pass on the more difficult part to Andrew. You asked the difference between rule-based and machine learning. The reason why we decide to go in machine learning is rule-based means that you define the rule. If it doesn't meet the rule, it throws out an exception. And we realize that some of the exceptions are really okay, except that because we specify the rule, it says A to B, and it doesn't meet the rule, it will throw out an exception. And when we look at the exception, we say this is really okay, except because we have to redefine the rule much better. So we decided maybe we can use machine learning, because machine learning will learn. And once we teach the machine to learn, it will, next time it will not pick the kind of same thing as an exception, because it learns that this is actually okay. And maybe I'll pass on to Andrew. Andrew is more techy, and he'll probably give you a more elaborate answer. Andrew, maybe you may have a few more matters to add. Over to you, Andrew.
Yes. Yes, thank you, Hock-Chye. Well, I think Hock-Chye that's already gave a very high-level answer, and that's a very good question. My feedback, and I'd like to share about this tool is, first, identify the area, what is the result you want to see. For example, if that process requires very accurate result, rule-based is the key. So if you use rule-based, the count of rule-based testing is actually the pro tool, because any rule you specify, it gives you exactly the exception. It doesn't pardon anything. So you can very easily screen out the exception. So for example, if it's about trade value, that may be something you really don't want to let go. That rule is better than machine learning. Machine learning, on the other hand, it depends on what kind of data you're feeding. It's going to train itself, and it has the certain level of the error tolerance. So machine learning is actually good in the area that the result itself may not be so accurate. You don't really need a very high level accuracy. But then you may experience a lot of false positive if you apply the business rule to test things. The example that we mentioned, that's why we use that specific test instead of other area. Like if it's a trade log, and then for a certain trade, it requires to be segregation of duty. So some people can enter the trade, some people cannot. However, there are exceptions, and they are always pardoned. You may want to use the machine learning algorithm to see whether they are able to detect a certain pattern, and that's always being green lighted before. So you can label it, oh, it doesn't have to really A to B. If it's going to A, C, and B, that's what's based on past experience, it's okay. Then the machine is able to learn that. But if we want to script in ACL or in other language to maintain that kind of business rule, it's proved to be too complicated. So I hope it answers your question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Andrew. Hopefully it's answered the question. Is it Pak Yangki? Okay.
Yes, thank you for the explanation, sir.
Okay. So, Mr. Hock-Chye, can we have one or two more questions? Considering it's 5. Oh, right. Okay. So you said that earlier using Python is free. We just have to download it, and then we also have to invest time to learn it. We only need to invest time to learn it, and we can implement the machine learning ourselves. Considering it's free, some people say there is no free lunch at all, because when it's free, then we pay not by cash but by other forms. So do you think that our data that is calculated or that is inputted in the Pythons or used in Pythons is safe?
Okay. Okay. It's a good question. I will answer a bit, then I'll pass on to our Python champion, Chris Ian, to talk a bit more about technical. Python is an open platform, which means that it's available. You can go there and use it, okay? Which you don't have to buy it, or it's that. But as far as what are the security around that, what kind of data, that one maybe I'll pass on to Chris, because Chris is actually a user of Python, and he's probably be more apt to answer the question. Chris, are you online? Maybe you can try to attempt the reply on the security features around Python when it comes to data.
All right, thanks, Hock-Chye. Regarding the Python, Python is a computer programming language, and it's a software that you can just install in your local the cloud. So in you send anything to outside your computer. So any data that you have, it stays in your laptop. So one thing good about Python is there are a lot of contributors to Python, especially researchers and other data scientists. They're the ones who regularly contribute. We say it's like a package that you can just use readily into Python, and it's more of like sharing is like they think that it's better to share the knowledge that they have built on to others. So that's why it's an open source, it's free, and it's more for research, data analytics.
Okay, nice answer.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah. Okay, maybe the last question for me is like technology. Technology is always evolved. I mean, like nowadays, it evolves even more rapidly than before. How you said before that we cannot be left behind and on using technology. How do our organization, our internal audit function, to keep up the pace of the changing on technology? What's your point of view? And maybe that's you also could add your closing remarks because we are at the end of our sessions.
Sure. It's a very good question. You know, you never catch up with technology because technology is moving so fast. In fact, what I tell you now is probably outdated. So in fact, what we are doing now is probably outdated. Maybe there's a better technology out there. So to answer your question, there's always a constant learning. With technology, you always have to, what you know today is outdated. So, but you have to constantly do and constantly learn. So there's always a constant learning process because technology is moving so fast that that you constantly have to catch up. But the thing is, you have to pick your own pace. So, I mean, there's a saying that a good friend of mine I would say that you don't boil the entire ocean just to make a cup of tea. So what you do is you just do whatever you can, but you have to constantly learn because technology, like for example, our cell phone now, our cell phone can do so many things it could not before. So there are a lot of things that you need to do and look at. So it's a constant learning process. So that answers your question. And I just wanted to take this opportunity to actually thank everybody in this room to actually join us in our presentation. I hope by sharing, we actually learn from your questions, and I hope by sharing you also learn some of the things that we do. But it also becomes very important for us to actually learn from, you know, in the whole spirit of IAA's Institute of Internal Auditors motto of progress to sharing. Because we do something, we share, and we learn how others are doing it. And we do that progressively in a lot. So I would say one of the main lessons is actually to just do it and to share what you learn and then learn from others and then continue going forward. Because you're never alone in this. Whatever you're doing, there are 20 people out there in the world that's actually doing that. And in our case, we also have a big community of, we have a community called Audit Without Walls. It's a community of public sector internal auditors. Now we are including private sector internal auditors. We have a community of 1,000 people from more than 100 countries who can actually join the community for free. It's a way of sharing knowledge through that community. And on that note, I can see Harry. And thank you. But do you guys want to take a group picture, a photo section or something before you guys go? Do you normally do that? Or?
Okay, yeah, we can do that. I think. Okay, Bapak Ibu, silakan saya buka biar bisa bersama untuk mengakhiri sesi ini. Sekali lagi saya ucapkan terima kasih kepada Bapak Ibu partisipan yang sudah berkenan hadir. And then I also on behalf of IAA Indonesia thanks all of you from the ADB, especially Mr. Hock-Chye, Chris Ian, and Pak Hari, Marisol, Mr. Andrew, for your, eye-opening presentation. And then all of our governors, board of governors, say hi to all of you, and also send my greetings to fellow auditors in Philippines. Okay, we may have a group pictures here. Yeah. Okay. Okay, it's done. Okay, so once again, thanks everybody for joining us today. Thanks again for all of our speakers. Hopefully this session could meet our mission, our AI jargons, as we are progressing through sharing. And then see you on the next IA International Learning Session. And goodbye. Thank you.